Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Thursday, April 21st edition of StudentLoanJustice.org. My name is Alan Collins. Ed is off tonight. He has something going on. So in his, as homage to Ed, just like yesterday, then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Little opening music. That's what Ed likes to do. So that was The Who. We won't be fooled again. That's so important, and I'll come around to that in a minute. Got a couple of announcements tonight. By the way, if you're new, welcome. Glad you found us. We're the oldest, largest, in many ways, only true grassroots group fighting only and absolutely for student loan justice. We're fighting for the return of bankruptcy protection of student loans, which interestingly turns out to be the most important thing still. But the lending system has failed. The second thing we're fighting for is the cancellation by executive order of all federally owned student loans. Not 10,000, not up to 50,000, all of them. The lending system has catastrophically failed. Capital F, galactically failed. And we're getting close. So we're glad that you found us. If you're watching us on Facebook or Twitter and you have any questions or comments, I will gladly respond to them and read them on air if I can see them. But there's a lot going on right now, ladies and gentlemen. First thing, most important thing is our bill, S-2598, in the Senate. That has two Republican Senate co-sponsors on it, by the way, which is quite something. We're a fiercely nonpartisan group, but the fact of the matter is that Republicans have tended to oppose us over the 17 years we've been doing this. So this bodes very well for the bill. This week and last week, according to my sources, are absolutely make or break for our bill. All the conversations are being had right now, and the bill is being or will be, probably will be marked up because Senate's not in session right now, next week. So what we do this week, I kid you not, could make or break this bill. It's so important. But I'm very happy to report that we were featured on Fox News Radio today. If you go to the Fox News Rundown, look at the 15-minute mark of today's Fox News Rundown, you can see it wasn't a great story. We were pushed back on a lot by this lady, Jerry Willis. She doesn't know what she's talking about, by the way. But anyways, that's another conversation. We also did a really quality conversation with a, again, conservative show in Denver, Colorado, something called the Josh Kozinski. Anyways, I'll post a link to it below when I find it. It's KHOW in Denver, and you can listen to the podcast yourself. High quality conversation. He asked all the tough questions, which is exactly what we want. We like going into the lion's den on this group here, guys. That's where this problem is going to be solved. So, but yeah, no, if you're watching us on Facebook or Twitter, by all means, throw your comments out. And if I can see them, I will gladly respond to them. We also got a really nice mention on a podcast featuring, I think it was called like Worldwide Rebellion or something. Tina Rocket was nice enough to forward it to me, who's a strong leader of the Green Party, believe it or not. And again, as I said, guys, we are a fiercely nonpartisan group. We kind of hate certainly both of the major parties. We kind of like the Green Party. But whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or a Libertarian or a Green or a communist or an anarchist, you are very welcome in our group. We're all fighting for the same thing, and that is an end to this cancer that is growing on this country, which is certainly federal, but also private student loans. So this broadcast today, the financial, what was it called? Oh, I'm going to have to find it. But anyways, it featured Catherine Austin Fitts, who's a former board member of Sallie Mae. And Catherine gave us a great shout out. It's very strong broadcast, by the way. They go into things far larger than student loans. They go into how the federal government works, and it's not pretty at all. It's frankly quite shocking, but I urge you to all give it a listen. So there's that. We went on Fox News television a couple weeks ago with Dana Perino. Again, we got hit with all the tough questions, which we love. And this is exactly the right time for us to be doing these interviews, guys. It's so important that we get our message out. This is InfoWars. It truly is. And if you've been paying any attention to the zeitgeist lately, you will see that our opposition is freaked the F out right now. You know, when we first started doing this in 2005, we might see maybe one article per month about student loans, like anything about student loans. Today, we're seeing probably a dozen articles per day, and most of those articles are against us. There are opposition that are seeding the zeitgeist with all these, quite frankly, lies that canceling student loans will benefit the wealthy, that canceling student loans will exacerbate inflation, that canceling student loans will break the country financially, and all this absolute, complete, utter BS. And with nothing more than being armed with nothing more than the facts, we can easily dispatch all of those fake arguments. And by the way, shame, big shame on all the people that are launching that nonsense against us. It is disgusting, very easily disproven. But again, guys, this is really kind of a numbers thing. Who controls the public conversation? And our opposition, they are wrong, and they know they're wrong, and they run like cockroaches everywhere we go. But nonetheless, they're pretty good at controlling the media. The corporate media is really not our friend. Forbes magazine and even CNBC is just crap lately. We've seen some good stuff from like The Guardian, some good stuff from Business Insider. But guys, I'm telling you, 9 out of 10 articles out there are in one way or another designed to defeat us and keep this lending beast going. So I actually love to see it just because it's obvious that we've touched a nerve. But guys, the truth, the actual truth, the objective truth, is only going to rise to the top when we make that happen. You know, I would love to be doing interviews like what we did today, 3, 4, 5 times a day for the next 5 months or however long it takes. I would love that. And anything that you can do to make that happen is very helpful. You know, it's really surprising. I can call news stations all day long and say, hey, you should really interview us. We've got a strong story to tell. And it just never goes well. They're like, no, we're not going to do that. But when a third party refers us to a news station, a radio station, a whatever, the odds go up dramatically that they will give us a fair hearing. And so like this thing in Denver today, I believe it was one of our members that suggested to them that they interview us. It went well. It was an honest conversation. The guy was a very stalwart conservative, and you can hear it for yourself. You go to KHOW. So that's all really good, guys. And again, I'm getting a little lazy on the comments, but I suspect we have a few looking on Facebook. So, oh, here we go. Okay, yeah, we've got a bunch of people here tonight. Rosanna Munoz, Doug Grostefin are both here, I see. Rosanna says, they need to know that many of us have paid for the loans over and over. I know, you're so right, Rosanna. And in fact, in the interview I did today, I brought up the example of V. Her name isn't V, but it starts with V. And she may be here with us tonight, but I'm not going to say. Our friend V borrowed $26,000 back in the, I think, 80s or 90s. She has repaid $93,000 on this $26,000 loan. And yet she still owes $132,000. So people have paid, and they have paid and paid and paid and paid through the nose in many cases. And I made that point today. I unfortunately wasn't able to make it on Fox News back a couple of weeks ago, but I was able to make it today. So it's very good. It's our stories that really carry the most weight, I'm finding. I'm kind of a talking head. I can talk policy all day long and rattle off statistics, which I do and which I will continue to do. But, the actual pain that's being caused, human pain that's being caused out there in the country, I think that's really what moves people, guys. It truly is. So if you're sitting there with your tail between your legs and you don't even mention your student loans to your significant others, your spouse, your parents, kids, etc., you need to shake off that shame. Look, there's no shame in being the victim of the worst predatory lending scam in U.S. history. It's not your fault. This is not a bad borrower problem. This is a bad lending system. And don't ever forget that. Lending systems fail from time to time, sometimes catastrophically, sometimes spectacularly. And this is what we're seeing with the federal student loan program. I think people had by and large given up even trying as of like right before the pandemic. We already know that the default rate for the class of 2004, who are only borrowing a third of what's being borrowed today, is 40%. So what do you think the default rate is for more recent students who are borrowing triple what they borrowed back in 2004? Yeah, everybody walking around with student loans today, even before the pandemic, the default rate was going to be 60, 65, 70%. The subprime home mortgage default rate, by contrast, was a mere, and it was still huge, but it was a mere 20%. So we are like something like triple, getting on towards quadruple the default rate as subprime home mortgages. So the lending system has failed. It's not our fault. It's not your fault. And quite frankly, I would say it failed by design. The people who architected this thing, they saw this coming. They saw this coming from years or even decades in the past. And because they were making so much money, I suspect, they just didn't want to stop it, and they didn't. And so now, here we are. Hey, Doug Grossofin says, or actually, let me work from back to first to last. So it's a great point. Vanjie says, I'm more and more convinced that POTUS is working to gaslight us borrowers and cover up his buddies in the student loan industry. I agree with you completely, Vanjie. Joe Biden has got a lot of personal baggage in his trunk on this issue. And quite frankly, it is disgusting. In fact, Joe Biden was a surprisingly key guy. Joe Biden is a surprisingly key guy. As a junior senator in 1976, he was called out by name by Dennis DeConcini, the Arizona senator who passed the first legislation that started restricting the bankruptcy laws for student loans. Joe Biden deserves a ton, but maybe even the lion's share of the credit for getting bankruptcy taken away from private student loans in 2005. Biden is not a good guy, ladies and gentlemen. He never has been. If Bernie Sanders were president today, that would be something entirely different. Bernie Sanders is not president. Joe Biden is president, and Joe Biden has been a suck up to the banks, the credit card companies, the student loan companies forever. And I could literally probably talk for an hour or more about all the secret little things that have gone on with, and not so secret. I know about it, so they're probably not secret, but not very well known facts about Joe Biden and the student loan industry. I could talk about press conferences that he did shoulder to shoulder with Albert Lord when Sallie Mae relocated their corporate headquarters to Delaware after the 2005 legislation, and on and on and on. But yeah, if I had to guess, Vanjie, what we're going to see from Joe Biden is come September 1st, they're going to extend the repayment pause through the elections. And, oh, by the way, September 1st is right when early voting is about to begin. And he's going to say, okay, ladies and gentlemen, you've convinced me. I'm going to do everything that the left wants, and I am going to cancel up to $50,000 in student loans. And the band will cheer, and the parades will happen, and the confetti and the champagne, all that's going to happen. And then you know what's going to happen? As long as the threat of bankruptcy is gone from the loans, and I hope that doesn't happen, but if that does happen, this up to $50,000 will turn out to be almost nothing for almost everyone. This is how the Department of Education, this is how the student loan apparatus has always operated. In 2007, they foisted a fake loan cancellation on us in the form of income-based repayment, an income-driven repayment program, IDR, and public service loan forgiveness. So the vast majority of people in IBR have already been disqualified out of that program. The vast majority of people trying for public service loan forgiveness, 99 point something percent, were disqualified out of that program for very stupid, usually technical reasons. Now, only now are, thanks to pressures from teachers' unions and so forth, only now are they claiming that they're going to fix the public service loan forgiveness program. In fact, just yesterday, we saw a huge announcement about how, oh, there's 40,000 more people that are probably going to get their loans canceled because they were in long periods of deferment, etc. Guys, don't believe the nonsense. In 2007, they went to great lengths to kill the push for bankruptcy protections, and they foisted in its place these income-based repayment, public service loan forgiveness programs that don't work for almost everyone. And even with the current fix in place, we're looking at very few people compared to the 45 million people out there who don't work for a nonprofit who are still screwed. So I like to say they're throwing nickels around like manhole covers. Like yesterday, the big news, or yesterday, the day before, the big news was, 40,000 people are going to get their loans canceled. Yeah, that's 0.009. It's 0.09% of all borrowers. You almost can't even see that on a pie chart. So, guys, and again, in 2011, we had bankruptcy legislation going through Congress, and some very dirty things happened, and I won't go into it here, but let me just say, at the very last minute, the bank yanked out, and what we ended up getting from Obama was a minor improvement in the income-based repayment program, and the pay-as-you-earn program, which is a sort of an offshoot of that, and the revised pay-as-you-earn, which just very small incremental improvements. And again, everybody is getting disqualified out of the income-based repayment program. Sometimes they earn too much. They don't fill out their income verification forms correctly. Statistically, the Department of Education gives about 30% of everyone in income-based repayment. They disqualify them out of the program every year. Now, maybe that doesn't sound too bad. You're like, okay, well, 70% make it through. But if you look at it statistically, it turns out that the statistical percentages of you making it through 20 or 25 years of income-based repayment, given that 30% are kicked out every year, it's a vanishingly small percentage. It's like 1%. I think it's less than 1%. So guys, we can't let ourselves be fooled again. And Vanjie, you're right. We're being gaslit. And right before the election, we're going to say, oh, look, up to $50,000. And we're going to go, okay. And hopefully everybody, at least their hope is that everybody will vote for the Democrats. And by some miracle, the Democrats will hang on to power. And then when the dust settles and, January rolls around, all of a sudden it's, we set up to 50, but you get 10 grand, you get 13 grand, you get 3 grand, you get nothing because you earn too much. You get nothing because you didn't fill out your form correctly. It'll be like that, guys. That's the way it's always worked. And that's the way this is going to go. And only a fool would think that anything has changed. The DNA of the Department of Education is precisely the same as it's ever been. And this goes beyond presidents, beyond secretaries of education. This goes to the unelected, unappointed bureaucrats that run the show. And quite frankly, I think this goes back to the Treasury Department. The Treasury Department has been fighting hard behind the scenes for this program, fighting hard to keep bankruptcy gone from these loans. So it's a very dirty business, guys, and I can only hope that you'll be smarter than that. Quite frankly, in my humble opinion, I think the only chance that the Democrats have to hold on to power in these midterms is the full, total cancellation of all federally owned student loans. And obviously, the return of bankruptcy to all of the loans, including those that cannot be canceled by executive order. I mean, that is truly what I could see compelling enough people to overcome the very strong headwind that the Democrats are facing now, even student loans notwithstanding. So that's my best analysis. So let's go back to the comments here. 40,000 people is less than a football stadium. That's right, Elisa. It's nothing. And, way more than 40,000 people are added into the student loan program in the form of new students every year, like millions of them, like I think 5 million, 3 million. It's big. It makes 40,000 people a drop in the bucket, a rounding error. Hey, Doug Grosfin says that was very good in Denver. His name was Ross. Yeah, I think it was Ross Kaminsky, right? Kaminsky. In fact, I can tell you right now what it was. Ross Kaminsky. I was right. Kaminsky. KHOW. Give it a listen. Well, thank you, Doug. I think the more that we can go into the lion's den, the better. We've been sharpening this sword for literally 17 years now, guys, going on 18 years. I'm sorry. Very sorry to say. This is only supposed to be a 2-year project when we first started, but things are definitely looking up. We got some good media today, including on Fox News Radio, which I mentioned earlier. Rosanna says, and educate the ones who think we are trying to get away with not paying what we borrowed when we've paid twice or more. Absolutely right, Rosanna. And again, I try to mention that often. The federal government has been making money hand over fist on this lending scam for at least the past 12 years. And even going back to 2004 and before, the Department of Education, believe it or not, has been making a profit, not a loss, a profit on defaulted student loans. Like, there's no other lender of any other loan, including the mafia, who can claim to be making money on a defaulted loan. Only the Department of Education, and only for federal student loans. That is the sign of a predatory lending scam. I really shouldn't have. We shouldn't have to even be here, guys. I'm telling you. I mean, this thing is such an obvious scam, such an obvious and blatant violation of our constitutional rights, including our bankruptcy rights as listed in the Constitution, ahead of the power to declare war and raise an army. It's also a clear and blatant violation of our rights to equal protection under the law. Many would argue it's a violation of our constitutionally protected right to due process. Increasingly, I'm hearing people talk about this being an amendment violation of Article 13, which bans slavery, but also bans indentured servitude. So there is nothing that this lending scam has going for it from a policy standpoint. And the fact that the experts out there haven't been shouting about this from the rooftops, including the student loan advocates, by the way, and there's a pretty sordid backstory behind that, makes me very, very, very suspicious of both parties and even people who claim that they are student advocates. So I'm not going to go too much further with that one here today, but you're absolutely right, Rosanna. This lending scam is bleeding the country dry. And at this point, it's done. It's finished. It's toast. We have just outrageous numbers like the people of Texas, most who are, by the way, Republicans or independents, owe $141 billion. Like, the entire state budget of Texas is $119 billion. So the people of Texas owe more than the entire state budget, and they've got a large state budget. In federal student loan debt, what would happen if we ripped somehow $141 billion out of the pockets of the people in Texas and sent that money to Washington, D.C., it would not be good at all for the state of Texas. It would probably turn Texas into some kind of a second world state or something. It would not be pretty. Hey, Lisa Ansel says, it's not our opposition truly believes that cancellation would benefit the wealthy. That's just a filler claim to preserve their cash cow. Exactly, Lisa. And by the way, shame, big shame on Mr. Tim Mooney, Mooney, who claims to be from the Brookings Institute, but actually he is a hired shark, a hired gun from the Treasury Department. Oh, sorry, Adam Mooney. Adam Mooney is trying very hard to claim that canceling student loans will benefit the wealthy. And he says this is true because the highest 20% income people own 30% of student loan debt. Well, first of all, by Adam's own numbers, that means that 70% of student loan debt is owned by the bottom 80%. So on balance, canceling student loans would largely benefit the unwealthy. So that's just by their own numbers. But look at PPP loans, right? The highest 20% income bracket owns 75% of those PPP loans. So where was the uproar when we were throwing trillions of dollars in PPP loans out to the country, all of which added to the national debt and required money to be drawn from the Treasury? Where was the uproar there? But even more than that, guys, the highest earning student loan borrowers tend to be older people in their 50s or their 60s, or even maybe older, but income goes down after about 65 on average. But yeah, the highest earning student loan borrowers, they're not the young doctors and lawyers that they always trot out. Those people tend to refinance their loans out of the federal program, by the way. No. The highest earning student loan borrowers tend to be older people because that's how that goes. The older you get, the more money you make. It's kind of a fact of life. And so like that example that I mentioned earlier, V, who borrowed $26,000, repaid $93,000, still owes $132,000 on a $26,000 loan. She now technically is in the highest 20% of earners. So she earns slightly more than $100,000 a year. And she's looking forward to retirement, guys. She probably doesn't have much retirement. She finally, after years and decades, including paying these god-awful loans back, she's finally at a point where she can now maybe save for retirement. And here is that student loan monster demanding all of her extra pennies and dimes. So is Vanjie wealthy? No. I would bet that Vanjie's net worth is maybe even near zero. I don't know. But that's not wealthy, guys. That's not wealthy. That's somebody whose loans should have been canceled years ago. And shame on the bad people, the Moonies of the world, the Larry Summers of the world, the Grover Norquists of the world, who keep repeating this false effing claim that canceling student loans will benefit the wealthy. Shame on them. Vanjie said, hey, Vanjie, she says, I already read that comment, but you're right. The Biden is trying to gaslight us. If Bernie wasn't in the presidency, maybe I'd have some reasonable confidence in anything the president said, but Bernie's not. So, Doug Grossfin says, we must be helping because I see so many more interviews you've done over the past few months. Yeah, I think definitely it's helping, guys. You know, word of mouth is all we've got, guys, really. We don't have a marketing department. We don't have a PR staff. We don't have secret handshake deals or advertising little handshake deals with mainstream media. All we have are people. That's all we've got. And honestly, that's really all we need, as long as all the people out there, which means you sitting there, I see you, which means you helping. You know, anybody can call, I don't know, Democracy Now! And say, hey, you should really have this group on. They've got a very strong story to tell. Unreported research that has not yet been broken in the mainstream media. And we've got a ton, by the way. For example, less than half of all borrowers were even making payments before the pandemic. That's a big one. Older borrowers now outnumber younger borrowers, and they owe far, far more, despite having borrowed far, far less. That's another unbroken story. Most student loan borrowers are either Republican or independent. That is another story that's never been broken in the mainstream media. And I've been a little lazy. I could maybe, we've broken news all over the place, on 60 Minutes, the Wall Street Journal, and many other places. But, it's just gotten so freaking difficult to get the corporate media to report important truths at this point. And we're discovering new information quite rapidly nowadays. Like, it seems like every month we break a significant story. I just throw them up on our Medium platform at this point. I know I shouldn't. I probably should be more proactive about getting reporters to report on it. And we've had some, pretty good success over the past few months. But look at our studentloanjustice.medium.com platform. And if you read the most recent 7 or 8 articles, and they're simple, that's, short articles, easy to read, easy to understand, you will be hugely more powerful as a student loan justice warrior after you read those than you are right now, probably. Unless you know a whole lot about it already, but most people don't. Studentloanjustice.medium.com. If you want to become a very effective student loan justice warrior, and if you want to be able to shut the haters up, which is the most important thing in my view, it seems like, in these info wars that we are engaged in, reading, understanding, inculcating those articles are just incredibly important. But yeah, things are definitely looking up, Doug. We're getting featured in the media nowadays on stuff that we don't even know about until it comes out. So that's always a good sign. Vanjie says S2598 HR 4907 is really, really necessary to change the system and ensure cancellation. And yes, you're absolutely right, Vanjie. It bears repeating. This whole thing rests on bankruptcy, guys. If we don't get S2598 passed, then anything that Biden does after that is going to be fake. It's going to be fake. We've seen it too many times before. There's no good reason to believe that won't happen again. There's every reason to believe that that's exactly what's going to happen again. So please just learn from our wisdom. Please, please, please. We can't allow ourselves. I won't be fooled again. You shouldn't let yourself be fooled maybe the first time, but probably again. If you're over the age of like 40, you've already been tricked, whether you know it or not. But come on, guys, we got to be smarter than that. We're all we've got, people, normal people. And at the same time, we're really all we need. Do you have any idea? We've got over 1 million people on our petition now. We've got 20,000 people on our Facebook group. We've got a couple 100,000 people on our other platforms. Can you imagine if everybody in our little club actually did like even 10 minutes worth of stuff a day? We could overwhelm the phone banks of every congressional office, every Senate, every House office. We could overwhelm the Twitter accounts of every elected official, of every influencer, of nearly every media outlet. In fact, probably every media outlet we could overwhelm. You have no idea how important you sitting there are. It's just boggles my mind. On any given day, maybe a few thousand people are doing stuff that I can tell. It's probably a few more than that, but guys, that's not enough. It's not going to get it done. We got to have more people. Tell everyone you know with student loans about our group. This, as unlikely as it may seem, is pretty much ground zero in this fight. But for our group, we would definitely not have a bankruptcy bill to fight for that's any good. But for our group, I kind of don't think that we'd be talking about student loan cancellation by executive order. It was our petition that we started in March 2020 before almost anyone was talking about student loan cancellation, and much less by executive order. It was only when our petition really started rocking, like by September, like 6 months after that, where Elizabeth Warren and Chuck Schumer embraced the concept and made it a thing. So this group is way more important than you might think. And what you do matters. We are the pioneers in this battle. You cannot unhear that. What you do really matters. In fact, what everyone does tomorrow, Friday, the last day of this week being the most important week in the life of our bill, S2598, really, really could make the difference, could be make or break. You could be the person that makes that great phone call You could be the person that sends that perfect Twitter or the perfect email. And to that end, let me say the one action item I have for all of you. If you've never done anything for student loans or student loan justice, or even if you have, the one thing that you can do that would really help hugely right now, tonight, is going to our website and doing a month worth of our daily actions. Look at the top of the website. You can see it. You can probably do a month worth of our, assuming you have a Twitter account, and you got to have Twitter because that's most of our stuff is Twitter, unfortunately. You can probably do a month worth of our daily actions in 20 minutes. It's like retweet this, retweet that, simple stuff. So Denise says they look the other way. Yeah, we have been the redheaded stepchild of politics for way too long, and we've been used, we've been lied to by President Biden and others. We've been gaslighted. We've been ignored is probably 90% of what we've been. We've been insulted. We've been viciously criticized as being these sort of lazy people, etc., these ne'er-do-wells. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you, before this pandemic, 80% of all borrowers were never going to be able to repay their loans. Over half had given up even paying. And the default rate was going to be something like 75%. That's not a bad borrower thing, guys. That's a bad lending system. We don't have to take this shit. Pardon my French. You should be proud to be fighting for student loan justice, because this battle that we're engaged in, it's way more important than even student loans. Because if they can do to other loans what they do to student loans, which is remove bankruptcy protections, remove statutes of limitations, there's nothing preventing this country from becoming a vassal, a serf, a indentured, enslaved state, country. I mean, think about that, guys. And believe me, there are a lot of people in this country, very bad people, who would love nothing more than to conquer and enslave this country by debt. Those are John Adams' words, not mine. Speaking of John Adams, I believe the founders are looking down on us and they're shaking their head and they're saying, how did our people get so weak? Why are our people running in fear of the federal government for a debt that is nonsensical? Like, I don't think the founding fathers would even understand why people borrow money to go to college. I don't think that would even, they would be shaking their heads. And so this is our battle, guys. Every generation has a battle to fight. This apparently is ours. Like that or don't. I'm an accidental activist, just like you are. We're not trying to build an empire here. We're trying to solve a problem. And if you care at all about getting these loans handled, even canceled, or maybe even you just want to break on the interest or some middling solution, you got to be helping us fight right now. You got to be helping us fight for bankruptcy. You got to be helping us fight for student loan cancellation. And the former will lead to the latter. The former is way more important right now. So, hey, Lisa says, it is so infuriating that Cardona continues to parade the recent successes of public service loan forgiveness when in reality, 99% of borrowers are still denied. Right, exactly, Lisa. Like last I heard, something like 30 or 40,000 people had their loans canceled. That's like not even 2% of everybody who tried. That's 2% of the applications. Remember also, there are millions of people who were kicked out of income-based repayment years and years ago. They were hoping to get public service, but they got kicked out. And so they said, screw it. And they, threw up their hands. So yeah, guys, don't believe the nonsense about, oh, look how great public service is now. It's not. And even this announcement that we heard the other day, they said they would do this and they would do that. Well, the Department of Education said that it would do a lot of things over the past 17 years. And they have actually done almost none of those things. Getting them to cancel a nickel in student loans is like, it's like trying to throw a manhole cover. Okay, all right. It's like the second or third time I've tried that one out tonight. But I'm just saying the DNA of the Department of Education, the DNA of the lending apparatus is disgusting. This is a cancer on the country. In my humble opinion, It is both unwise and unpatriotic for anybody out there to ever pay another dime on their federal student loans. It's unwise and it's unpatriotic. If you resume repaying your student loans, if and when Biden turns the lending program back on, number one, you're going to be in the very small minority. My best guess is that maybe 20% of the people will resume paying. It's also unwise because the lending system's failed, guys. The loans will not be paid. The loans will be canceled. Whether we get a clean cancellation or very ugly and messy and probably civilly and socially unrestful unwinding death of this lending system, if you will, that remains to be seen. And much depends on how hard we fight, how hard we, the people, fight. This is a battle, guys. It's your battle. These are your loans. Rosanna says, nobody knows the struggle until it's their problem. That's right. And, even when it is their problem, Rosanna, most people, they run away, fight or flight. They pick flight. They ignore it. They shove it under the carpet. They won't mention it to their friends and family. They walk around life with their tail in between their legs. It's a horrible thing to do to a citizenry. It's terrible. Nothing good is coming from this. So quite frankly, you should be proud to be fighting with us. I feel privileged to be fighting this battle. We got this, guys, but you've got to fight. And there has never been any substitute for that. Ralph Nader said that 99% of democracy is simply showing up. You've got to show up. How true that is. We've got a ton of new comments here. I'm going to just quickly go through them. Denise says, everybody go through your congressperson, attorney general, whenever you deal with these asshole loan servicers. Yeah. Attorney generals can only do so much. What we've seen in the past, Denise, is that the attorney general's offices, every once in a while, they'll sue the servicers and sometimes win. And what that results in is a big settlement where the attorney general's offices and a whole bunch of lawyers get a whole bunch of money. And it leads to almost nothing for the borrowers. So I'm not a big fan of the attorney generals, quite frankly. I think it's kind of a scam. And they say, oh, it's a step in the right direction. Yeah, they've been taking these steps in the right direction for 17 years now. And that's how that goes. It's a moonwalk. It's backwards. The one thing state government should be good for, if we can convince even one Republican governor like Ron DeSantis in Florida or Greg Abbott in Texas or Kay Ivey in Alabama or Bill Lee in Tennessee or Mike DeWine in Ohio or Chris Sununu in New Hampshire, if we can get even one Republican governor, was it Hobart, Missouri, any of the southern states, or really any Republican governor anywhere ever, if we can get one Republican governor to stand up and say, Mr. President, I will not allow the great state of Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, North Carolina, etc. I will not allow my state to be conquered and enslaved by this federal debt. Mr. President, cancel these loans. If we can get even one Republican governor to do that, it's pretty much game over, guys. That's pretty much game over. We win. And that could happen. We've got a very strong conservative argument to make. If I was the governor of Texas, I would say, Mr. President, you take this $141 billion in debt and you shove it up your you-know-what. That's what I would say if I was the governor of Texas. I would not let my state be conquered and enslaved by this unconstitutional debt. So that could happen, guys. You could be the person that makes that perfect phone call, has that perfect conversation with the chief of staff of the governor or something. Maybe you're the person that arranges a meeting between us and a governor's chief of staff or whoever else, public relations. I don't care. If you can get us in a meeting with your Republican governor or their staff, we can do most of the talking. Like I do that all day long. I could talk. But if you make that happen, who knows? But it all starts with you, guys. It all starts with you. These are your loans, and this is your battle. And don't be put off, guys. This is a numbers game. 99% of the time, you're going to be ignored. That's how that goes. You have to get louder. You have to be persistent. You have to be a bulldog. This is not something that we're going to win easily. This is, it's always been true that the power only gives up power when it is essentially taken from them. They will never give their power away. Never. So think about that. Be tough. Be strong. Don't let yourself be put off by the junior staffers in whatever office you happen to be talking with, whether it's a senator's office, governor's office, congressman's office. Don't be put off, guys. This is an important fight, and you should be proud to be fighting this, and you should be strong, because we are fighting for far more than just ourselves, guys. We're fighting for 44 million other people in the country. We're fighting for tens or hundreds of millions of people who are going to follow in our footsteps going to college, and they're going to be wrecked if we don't win this. But this is the camel's nose under the tent, guys. As I said, I could see this very same trick happening with every other type of loan in this country, with medical debt first, maybe credit card debt, on and on and on. There's nowhere that this might stop. This could go through the whole entire United States citizenry for all loans. We don't want that to happen. There's a lot riding on this. Remember that. So I see. Oh, by the way, congratulations to Gordon Wayne Watts, was able to get on C-SPAN yesterday and go toe-to-toe with a swamp attorney named Adam Minsky, who makes money off of this lending scam and absolutely does not want loans canceled. He may say friendly things, but he's completely full of nonsense. He does not want loans canceled. He does probably not want bankruptcy return. Whatever comes out of his mouth, the fact of the matter is this guy would be out of a job if loans were actually canceled. So good job, Gordon, with that. I would love to go on C-SPAN, by the way. Everybody that C-SPAN's had on in the past 5 years on the student loan program have been 90% swamp creatures, like Jason Delisle and Beth Akers and this guy Adam Minsky. I would love to go on C-SPAN, and I'm sure if 1,000 people sent C-SPAN an email saying, have student loan justice on, you should interview them, they probably would. So, again, all depends on you. What are you doing? Doing nothing is not an excuse. Our opposition, they want nothing more than for you to sit there worried, waiting, watching, wringing your hands, and reading Forbes magazine. That's what they want you doing. They would like nothing better for you to just sit there and do nothing. Don't give them the pleasure. Go to our website, read our articles, go do our daily actions, do a month worth, 2 months, do 3 months worth of our daily actions. It will help. And it will make you feel better. As it happens, fighting this battle is cathartic, believe it or not. Hey, Doug Grossman says, can you really tell us what we should stop payments if they resume in September? We don't give any advice, Doug. I can only offer my humble opinion. And in my humble opinion, it's both unwise and unpatriotic. If I were everybody else, I would be bulletproofing myself. And I would be finding ways to make sure that my wages couldn't be garnished, my property couldn't be seized, if it gets ugly. We are going to see a mass default. That's going to happen when these loans are turned back on. If and when. Default. The collection industry wants nothing more. They're drooling at the prospect of a mass default if and when they turn this lending program back on. The fact of the matter is, the vast majority of people are not going to repay their loans. So whatever side you decide to fall on, you know my opinion, but you're going to make whatever decision you make. I will say that if you are not paying, have already decided, or if you do decide to not pay, you should be bulletproofing yourself. This is, it will get very ugly. And there's a lot of things that you can do, to bulletproof yourself. I don't have to tell you what they are. You can be a 1099 contractor. So you're your own boss, for example. That way they can't garnish your wages. Many people in our group have paid a nominal amount every 269 days or less to keep their loans out of default. Many people have convinced their employers to tell the collection goons that they need to produce a court order or equivalent in order to do a wage garnishment, and the collection companies always go away. Putting your hard assets in blind trust. I don't know. There's a bunch of things that you can do to bulletproof yourself. And if you are going to be in the 80% of all people who don't resume making payments on their loans, you definitely want to be doing that. You want to be thinking ahead. I didn't say it was easy, guys. There's, like I said, there's nothing easy about standing up to power, but it's, what is the alternative? What is the alternative? Allow yourself to be conquered and enslaved for the rest of your life, and maybe even the whole entire country being conquered and enslaved by this ridiculous debt. And anyways, as I said, most all people will not resume paying on their loans. They weren't paying on their loans even before the pandemic. So, strength in numbers, guys. Strength in numbers. Think about the positive. Think about getting S2598 passed. And we could have it passed by summertime. If that happens, then that's pretty much game over. We win. It'll take a while for it to filter through everything. But I'm telling you guys, when we get bankruptcy return, everything changes. When we get the leverage of bankruptcy back, everything changes. And the federal government will have to act with at least the same good faith that nominally good faith that every other lender for every other loan has to abide by. So S2598 is just absolutely so critically effing important. I cannot tell you. And anybody saying that, oh no, it's either bankruptcy or cancellation, we can't fight for both, that's bullshit. Those people don't know what they're talking about. They should be ashamed of themselves. Bankruptcy and student loan cancellation are not opposed. They are simpatico. And in fact, the one depends upon the other. So just remember that. But yeah, I know it's a tough thing, Doug. It's a very stressful thing. There's nothing not stressful about this whole problem. But remember, guys, lending systems fail from time to time. Sometimes galactically, sometimes spectacularly. Subprime home mortgage crisis, failed lending system. The S&L crisis back in the 80s, failed lending system. Look at all of Europe in the mid 40s. Like pretty much, I think most lending systems and even most entire economic systems failed at that point in time. So we have been through far worse than this country, Doug. We are a stronger country than that. There are ways to stay out of default, Denise, with making only a nominal payment every 269 days, as I said. But don't feed the beast. That's what my humble opinion is. Giving these lenders money, including the Department of Education, that only emboldens them. And as I said, you're going to be in the great minority if you do pay. So student loans are essentially vanishing into a mist of illegitimacy as we speak, guys. It's not that big of a deal, but it's kind of a big deal to me, and it's kind of a big deal to you, I think. So, forewarned is forearmed. The more you know about this lending system, and particularly maybe the history behind it, the better you will feel about your chances. And as I said, it feels very good to fight this battle. We are bringing new information to people who don't know it and need to know it. Like, listen to that interview that I did today on KHOW with Ross Kaminsky, Kaminsky. That's stuff that Ross didn't know. And in fact, he even at one point in the interview said, I just don't believe that. I don't believe it. What's your source? And I gave him the source, and we talked afterwards. He goes, I'm going to look at that source. And I guarantee you the source is absolutely correct. It's the Department of Education. We are a very, very credible group. We don't make claims that aren't easily verifiable, usually by Department of Education data. We've broken some of the biggest news stories in higher education, going back to 2006. On 60 Minutes, in the Wall Street Journal. Yeah, we don't go talking out of our neck and saying things that can be attacked, because you know what would happen if we did that? We would be attacked and we would be put out of business. Like, we would be forever written off as just full of shit. Our credibility, our adherence to the truth is the most important thing that we've ever had in this group. So you can trust when I say that 64.3% of all federal student loan borrowers were not making payments on their loans before the pandemic. And you can read the white paper yourself, and you can look at the source data, and you can very easily vet and confirm the data for yourself. Denise, yeah, call Democracy Now, Denise. One other person tweeted to him today about us. We've been on Democracy Now in the past. I'd love to go on again. It's been over 10 years since we've been on that show. But now would be the best time of all to go back on and give them the update. And Doug, again, I'm not telling you what you should or shouldn't do. Everybody can make their own decisions depending on their own personal situations. You know, I know some people have state jobs where if they have a defaulted loan, they could get fired from those jobs. And so everybody's different. Everybody has a different situation. But as I said, there's ways to keep your loans out of default by, as I said, making a nominal payment every 269 days. I know many people have done it. It seems to work pretty well. I can't guarantee that it will work 100% of the time, but up to this point, it seems to work pretty well. But everybody's going to make their own decisions. And no matter what everybody decides, and you're more than welcome on this group if you decide to keep paying. You'll be in the minority. And in my humble opinion, it's unpatriotic, but you're still welcome here. And more than anything, no matter what people decide to do or don't do, the most important thing is that you help us fight. You got to help us fight. You know, if I were most people on this group, I would make a commitment to spend at least 15 minutes a day. Like, how worth it is it to get your student loans taken care of? Is that not worth 15 minutes of your effort a day? So we've got a bunch more comments here, guys, but I got to wrap it up. We've gone just a little too long. I see Denise has got a lot of comments. They seem to be pretty technical in nature, and so forth. Almost an hour, Alan. Wow, bro, don't kill yourself. Okay, that's the comment I'm going to end it on, Gordon. You're right. These live streams have been going quite a long time lately because so much has been happening, but I hope you're getting a lot out of them. Ed, I hope I did you. I was an adequate replacement for you tonight. I tried to do the song thing. But just remember, guys, the last thing I'm going to say, go to our website, do our daily actions. Help us. Help us. Help yourself. And tell everybody you know about this group. Tell everybody you know about our petition. It's only when you help we will get anywhere. And that's always been true. You have no idea how important you are. So I'll see you tomorrow night, guys. In the meantime, good luck, Godspeed, and God bless everybody.